So I want you to ask anyone who their favorite Nintendo character is, and I'm sure you're bound to get a wide variety of responses reflective of Nintendo's diverse and unique cast. You're bound to get some Marios, Links, Kirby's, Pikachus, Luigi's, Foxes, Samus's, Zeldas, and Nesses, and maybe among the more hardcore fanbase, you'll even get some responses riddled with Skull Kids, Ridley's, Happy Mask Salesman, and maybe even the Great Leon. Yet chances are, no matter who you pick, you're sure to land on a character who has been at the center of approximately zero controversy. And this is largely because of the squeaky clean, family-friendly mentality that Nintendo decided to adopt from an early stage in their business. Mario is harmless. Most Nintendo characters are harmless because they want their games to be for everyone, and there have been very few blunders in the company's history. Of course, there have been some characters in Nintendo's history that have been downright offensive. However, I'm choosing not to mention them in this video because it goes without saying these characters have been perceived almost unanimously as being offensive. So really, if you want to get to the semantics of it, there's nothing controversial about them anymore, but there is one Nintendo character who has flew relatively under the radar until fairly recently, who has been the center of a lot of controversy. You've got a lot of people arguing in favor of this character, you've got a lot of people arguing against this character, and this isn't controversy that has spilled over into the mainstream quite yet, but in the underground Nintendo fandom, specifically the Legend of Zelda fandom, there is ruthless ongoing debate about this guy, and that guy is Bolson. So, who is Bolson? Bolson is kind of an enigmatic Hylian character from East Necluda who makes his debut in Breath of the Wild. You know, he's this bright, visible guy who just stands out from pretty much all the other characters you encounter thanks to his eccentric attire. He's got a pink headband, a pink earring, a well-groomed beard, a relatively unconstricting tiger print hanten, that's a type of loose-fitting Japanese coat, pink pants where the belt sits above the waist, and various other accessories. He's a carpenter by trade and the owner of Bolson Construction, which is a construction company working in Hyrule, and you can buy your house from him for a relatively reasonable price in Hateno Village after you stop him from demolishing the vacant home. He'll also furnish your home for additional rupees, and once your home is fully furnished, he'll decorate it for you for free. Business is booming for Bolson, and after purchasing your house from him, he sends one of his subordinates, Hudson, to build a new town at Lake Akala. He's definitely got his quirks, notably the Bolson dance. He definitely doesn't dress like anyone else in Hyrule, and he only hires people whose name ends in the suffix son. He's definitely got an interesting way of wording things, and between all the furnishings you will inevitably get for your Hateno home, you'll see firsthand the banter he has with his employee Carson. Yet, despite what you see on the surface, Bolson has managed to snag himself a spot on Nintendo's most controversial list. And this is because he's a squatter. After the original purchase of sale from Bolson, and Hudson has already left to Lake Akala, Bolson and Carson stay behind and squat beside a fire on the front lawn of your home. And you can see this for yourself if you have Breath of the Wild. The pair sit down and they don't move at all. And you quickly begin to realize, oh, Bolson isn't going anywhere. Granted, he does briefly leave to go to Terrytown, the town you help him construct, but if you talk to him after the wedding event between Hudson and Ronson, he will promptly go back to squat on your lawn in Hateno Village. Now this seems like a completely ridiculous reason for this character to be controversial, and yet if you Google Bolson, you will see thread after thread, quarry after quarry, asking what is essentially the same question. How do I get Bolson to stop squatting on my property? How do I get rid of Bolson? How do I get rid of Bolson? And some of these threads can go on for a while. Some players have shared their crafty solutions to make sure Bolson can't get back onto your lawn. The comments to this solution, for example, read, "Finally, someone discovered a way to get rid of those squatters. You pay thousands of rupees and 30 bundles of wood, you pay for all the upgrades, and still these guys loiter on your lawn like they own the place." Another one from a different thread reads, "The house you purchase looks ghastly as hell, even after fully upgrading it. Two guys sitting there next to a fire like hobos really fits the ambiance of Link's house." Of course, some people have come to the defense of Bolson, saying, man, let your bros chill on your lawn. You wouldn't even have that lawn if not for them. And it kind of goes on and on like this, back and forth within the Zelda community, especially on the boards. I'm sure if you've also played Breath of the Wild, you yourself most likely have a strong opinion on Bolson squatting. Now, a lot of threads have offered solutions to this squatting problem, and players will consult other players by telling them not to talk to Bolson after the wedding in Terrytown if they don't want Bolson to return to loitering on their lawn in Hateno. There's even a tongue-in-cheek mod called Remove Lawn Freeloaders that essentially allows you to delete Bolson and Carson from the game. And while this is all internet banter, and most of the debate surrounding Bolson is played out in harmless fun, some talks around Bolson have become very mean-spirited, and in some cases even hostile, resorting to a lot of foul language directed at him. It's even gotten to the point where players are turning to the legal systems of both America and Japan to brush up on their squatting rights. Some are adamant that since their copies of Breath of the Wild were sold and purchased in America, Bolson's case of squatting should be evaluated under American law, and so on and so forth for countries in which copies of the game were sold. While some players believe that, no, the accurate thing to do would be to digitally extradite Bolson to Japan, where the game was created, so that he could undergo a fair trial there. And the water gets even muddier when you start taking a look at these legalities. For example, in America, there's this idea of adverse possession, wherein the squatter is entitled to the land which they have been squatting on, provided there is a vacancy on that land. This only gets more complicated when you take into account that not only has Link previously been away from his house for 100 years, but while you're exploring the lands of Hyrule, you can sometimes leave your lot vacant for weeks, months, or even years of in-game days. You know, at that point, if you truly have left your lot vacant for in-game years, and Bolson has been squatting on your land the whole time, and it becomes his land through adverse possession, provided he can prove he did so in good faith, does that not make Link the squatter when he comes back to do whatever he needs to do in his house? On the other hand, if we were to extradite Bolson to Japan where he was originally created, we would have to take into account Japan's adverse possession laws, Shutoku Jiko. That requires that if a lot has been abandoned for 20 years and one maintains the land with upkeep, and in that time there are no challenges to the land by the original owner, then a squatter would come into possession of that land. And the fact is, yes, Bolson does maintain the land of Link's house when Link is away. The grass is constantly kept, it's always green, meaning it is watered during the warm summer months, and the house always has a warming fire set in the front yard. So yes, if a player were to leave their lot vacant for 20 in-game years, it would be the case that Bolson would legally own your property again. Now, of course, I'm no legal expert, so I took to Twitter to ask the lawyers of the world what their take on the Bolson controversy was. And although no lawyers actually responded to me, a very good point was brought up, which was that Link was never actually seen signing any bill of sale or deed transaction for the house. That would mean that Bolson is actually still the proprietary owner of the house, and the home was never Link's to move back into. And if we actually look back on the footage of Link purchasing the house from Bolson, you can see that actually nothing was ever signed on Link's behalf to claim ownership of the house in exchange for the 3,000 rupees and 30 bundles of wood. So yes, unequivocally, that would mean Bolson still owns the house, and he essentially swindles you out of your 3,000 rupees and 30 bundles of wood. Now, of course, it's entirely possible that a contract or purchasing agreement of some kind was signed off camera, or there was some verbal agreement made, but things also start to get even more complicated when you start taking into account for honor bartering systems that have some legal protection. You know, there are some systems in place to protect exactly this kind of traditional bartering style legal transaction, especially in a place like Hyrule, where this for honor style of bartering is most likely still present in many pockets over the land. Regardless of Bolson's legal rights, what this ultimately comes down to is whether or not you, the player, accept Bolson to be living on your property. Because controversy or not, Bolson isn't actually a squatter if you personally decide he is welcome on your estate. If that is, you actually own it. As for myself, I've come to like the guy and his company in this cruel and punishing world Link inhabits. So I'll let him stay for the time being. And come sequel time, we'll see where things stand. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.